Good morning, Guy Griffith. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning on Paul Breakfast Show. Of course, uh, it's just Paul, Wendell, and myself in this morning.
Oh
So,
God, I wrote a Barrett free morning. I love 102 FM.
you're
I
going
forget
there.
that part.
You're going there.
Tota, Gary. I
What?
forget Tota.
He had to go there, didn't he?
Check Paul's face.
Good morning, Gary Griffith.
Good morning.
I'm not getting involved.
You might be saying what Paul want to say,
I'm not. I'm not getting involved at all.
You might
Gary,
actually be saying what
Gary
Paul want to
Griffith.
say.
Gary Griffith has a track record of shutting up the most vociferous speakers these days. Yeah, legally and otherwise. Court ordered gag.
Every
Good
Monday
morning, Gary. How are you, sir?
Good morning, and good morning to your many listeners and viewers.
How is the family?
Well, fine, thank you. In fact, she's actually now on another station dealing with a situation that's very interesting where she filed a petition demanding the resignation of two persons who hold high office in law enforcement. And these individuals actually went to social media to try and have it pulled down because they're against democracy. They're against the rights of persons, making a demand for people to be accountable for their lack of performance.
Now, for those who may not
Explain
know
that.
what Gary
Please
is speaking
explain
about,
that.
Gary is speaking about a petition launched by his wife, Nicole Griffith, on social media, digital platforms to have the to attain signatures, an e-petition, right?
Correct.
To gain signatures to have the Minister of National Security and the present police commissioner removed from office. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the petition was online for a couple of days, and then I saw your wife put out a new video release, saying that the petition had been taken down.
Correct.
What is and it's from an e-petition platform, right?
Correct.
What is the reason given by the platform for taking down the exercise?
Those who felt that they were being targeted or being their jobs may have been at risk stated that it is not true because what they sent to those persons on Facebook and stuff is to say that this is not true. We have a plan because they provided to Facebook a strategic plan from 2017 that failed miserably, by the way. That was Stephen Williams' plan that had the lowest trust and confidence in the police service in our history at that time, and about the highest crime rate ever, and the least trust and confidence that people had in actually feeling safe. So they said that there's no justification to have them removed from office because the police has a strategic plan. What that says is that anyone who holds office in anywhere in the world, whether it's private or public sector, if you are failing, if you're not delivering, if you're not made accountable, if your performance is being measured and you're found wanting, if you have a plan, there should be no reason to justify removing you. That was the justification by the Ministry of National Security and or the hierarchy of the TTPS.
So Facebook stopped the petition. All right. The former police commissioner, Dr. Dwayne Gibbs, said the award, and I'm quoting from the Guardian newspaper here, of today, a story by Darius Polo 11 hours ago. Former COP blames state contracts to gang leaders for extortions. And I'm taking a piece of it here. Former Commissioner Dr. Dwayne Gibbs said the award of government contracts to gang leaders fueled the record numbers of extortions he observed during his tenure from July 2010 to 2012. You have is that the time you were Minister of National Security or Minister or National Security Advisor?
Yes, I was National Security Advisor. Yeah.
Right. What is your comment? Do you have a comment on that, a response to that?
No, I agree. It's something that I have stated since I was National Security Advisor, Minister of National Security, and Commissioner of Police. There's a saying that if you play with filthy animals, you will get fleas. This has been a concern for the last 15, 16 odd years. And it started with our government actually referring to criminal elements, gang members as community leaders, bringing them in front of a round table and trying to negotiate with them. When you negotiate, it's just the same thing with terrorists. You must not do it. And politicians, they seem to believe that the only way to get things done, the only way to get projects completed the only way to be successful is to affiliate and socialize and work with criminal elements. And this happened. This has been going on for years. I got the data as the Minister of National Security. I was very adamant as the Minister of National Security. I am not going to allow it to happen. I recall even there was a police station that was built in Piccadilly. And whilst we were walking, certain individuals who were known persons of interest, who were community leaders, they were walking behind me because they built the police station. This is a police
Duncan
station.
Street. I spoke about that this morning, Gary, because you were the Minister of National Security on tour for that station that day with Dr. Munilal, who was Minister of Housing and acting Prime Minister, and also Jillian John. I spoke about that this morning. I remember that story.
Way right. So yeah, and it gave me the impression like what it is. I am the Minister of National Security, and then when we started doing the research, we started realizing that certain persons will be given state contracts to criminal elements, and some of them presently, I mean, even though there's an alliance with us, with the NT and the UNC, if it is that I am not going to allow that to continue when we get in government to replace the PNM. Of course, and that's here too.
Dr. Gibbs quoted a time in 2010 to 2012 when the UNC was in power and you were National Security Advisor. You ascended to the national security position, and you just identified an instance where someone of serious interest to police walked behind you when opening a police station, and you left that administration because, and I'm going to put this in a broad sense, issues related to integrity, right? That will take care of everything in that statistic. Would that be correct?
Yeah, that's
issues related to integrity, right, and transparency, and so and it was a decision that you were lauded for. Many people choose to keep the jobs and silent. You didn't. Fast forward 13 years, and you are now back with the party.
Right.
Do you think enough has changed with the principles in the party to justify the public accepting you in an alliance with that?
Right. Good question. But that was the only time when I stood firm on integrity. I also did it from 2018 to 2021 when senior government officials wanted me to arrest people because of their color and wanted me to put focus and interest on trying to arrest political opponents. And I told him where to get off. And like a little spoiled brat, he took offense to it. So it was my first rodeo on standing firm to what I believe in. It wouldn't be the last. And that is why, as a Minister of National Security at the time, probably ministers before me, commissioners before me were silent. And that is what, when I reached and I looked around, and I said, wait a minute, I can't believe what I'm seeing here. And I give the assurance to the country that would not, you see, at that time, I was a simple Minister of National Security. This time around, I'm a leader of a political party that obviously is going to have equal say with other political leaders of other political parties. If the heads of the COP, the Congress of the People at that time, did not want to say anything because they wanted to keep their jobs or to travel all over the world, that's what I'm here for. I am here to clean up this country. And when I got the research, I found out that many government officials, they were given state contracts to criminal elements. So they were giving them $5 million to build a $500,000 box train. And politicians, as clueless as they are, did not realize that when you do that, they are not using the extra profit to help the community. They were using it to purchase more illegal weapons, more sophisticated weapons, hire more gang members, bring in more drugs, sell the drugs, and put hits on other gang members to get their state contracts. And therein lies the problem. And it's the same thing that has taken place under the PNM administration. As the Commissioner of Police, we were littered with this, littered with reports of similar actions that continue to take place.
Gary, I don't think you've addressed the question Paul asked, and Paul, forgive me for jumping in here. What Paul is saying is that you have gone back to the same people who you had accused of certain things, you understand? And who's Dwayne Gibbs is also now commenting on at this stage, but you're still with them. I don't know that you could clean up the UNC, you know, Gary. You might you might have noble intentions of cleaning up the country, but I don't know that you could clean up the UNC. You know?
this is not about cleaning up a political party. This is about standing firm on principle. Because remember, every single approval for every cent in budgetary allocation must go through cabinet. So if I am a senior member in cabinet, I can now have, and this is very simple. We set a pattern that if there are persons of interest who are involved in criminal activity, and the Prime Minister and I, when this present Prime Minister, when I was Commissioner of Police, we had a war on this. It was a tit for tat, if you all recall, when I said that we are given, that the state is giving contracts to criminal elements. As stupid a comment as he could make, he said, well, if they are criminals, lock them up. And I had to educate the uneducated that there's a difference between intelligence and evidence. There are many persons that are known as terrorists in the United States. They don't have evidence to arrest them, but they're not going to give them a contract to build the White House. So I said that.
Gary,
came and said,
yeah, we understand that.
Wendell, I know you don't like what I'm going to say. Wendell, if you please, just 10 seconds. So what he said is that you cannot deprive any average citizen from getting a contract because of intelligence. That was his justification, Keith Rowley. And I had to put him in his place and say, you're wrong. If it is that there's intelligence, you do not give them the capability to build their empire, to buy more sophisticated weapons than the same police officers you want to protect the country. And he backed off and said it will be considered. It never was considered.
Okay. So I'm in agreement there. But what I'm saying is that won't you be placed in the same position that you already placed in, where you have to just leave the cabinet if you don't abide by what the cabinet is?
No. That's why I disagree. So the same way I was able to explain to this Prime Minister, who refused to adhere to my advice, but I was the Commissioner of Police. Now that I'll be in a position of authority, it's a mandate that any single state contract that is given, that no one must be red flagged by the law enforcement agencies to get a contract. Talk done.
What I'm saying is that you were already in that position, Gary, and what you had to do is you have to leave the cabinet. You were already there.
No, Amanda, that's why you're wrong. You see, that's what I'm telling you. If it is that decisions were made by certain individuals who I still have conflicts with at this time, or difference in views, is that if it is that those things were going on for years, and then I became Minister of National Security, when I discovered this was coming close to the end of my tenure as the Minister of National Security, and I stood firm and I said, we are not going to allow state contracts to criminal elements. Now, by the time that was stated, that's when the Pandora's box opened, and then live sport came up and all of that. And I stand firm and I give the assurance to the country, it is not going to happen. So the people who may be PNM supporters that are trying to say, well, it happened with the UNC, it is presently taking place right now. Right now.
Let me reverse engineer my question a little bit. Now, you said that, and I'm paraphrasing here, in this iteration of your relationship with the entity, you are going to ensure, because of your, I guess, equal status as a political leader, is that correct?
Correct.
That those situations don't happen again. Is it that you believe that the persons then whom you had the issues with knowingly gave contracts to criminal elements?
Well, of course they did. It was automatic. I mean, for them, I mean, everyone would have known the individuals. They knew what they were doing. And it's the same thing that is happening with this administration. So what Dwayne Gibbs is saying is a fact.
I'm just trying to get a train of thought here. So you saying persons in critical positions knowingly gave contracts to criminal elements, and which to me is extremely egregious, if not unlawful, because I mean, it's this taxpayers' money. And so you had disagreements with them to the point where you left an administration. That's why I asked the first question. Saying that you will be a check and balance is one thing, which is not a problem. That's somebody with integrity. But knowingly associated with persons who did that is something else. Knowingly choosing to reassociate yourself with someone who had that propensity. Don't you have an issue with that?
No, but you see, Paul, I hear you and I understand what you're saying, but let's look, everything in life is options. The other option I have is to go the straight and hard road of the ONR, the NAR, and the COP. And then it means that come 2025, the same thing will take place again. So I am obliged to be able to get involved with one of the two major political parties to ensure that any shortcoming that would take place would not take place because I will now be in that position. So by stating that I am the perfect person, and I will not staying. And I've heard so many people speak about this with the PNM and the UNC, where both parties would have faults, both parties have done a lot for the benefit of this country. But if it is that we don't affiliate ourselves with one of these major political parties, it means that we can very well get the same thing that will take place in 2025, 2030, and go on. The PNM, we know they're adamant they are not going to change. It is littered with the number of state contracts being given to criminal elements. Littered. I got it as the Commissioner of Police. I gave it to this government. They refused. They don't care. In fact, one of the ministers, he stated, but Gary, the money that we have to spend to give to the police to protect the contractors, it is more than what the gangs are claiming and through extortion. So he actually did it by dollars and cents. That is how bad it was, which is why I was very pleased that someone mentioned the possibility of you have 5,000 members of the defense force. You can probably utilize them. Or as I did with a certain counselor when there was a situation in South Key where we were trying to build bleachers and criminal elements through extortion were trying to stop it from being built. And what I did, common sense, put undercover officers, have them dressed as the contractors, and we took their wicket. And that is how police is supposed to be operating. A Minister of National Security is supposed to operate to ensure that we are adamant that whilst I'm in this cabinet, I want it agreed to prior to the election. Let the country know we are not going to affiliate ourselves with criminal elements. We are not going to give them state contracts. And when that decision is made, the country can have the assurance you're going to see a major reduction in criminal activity.
Gary,
I didn't finish my line of questioning. I allowed you to continue, Wendell.
No, it's just that point he made about the counselor.
Right. And I'm pursuing a line of questioning, if you'll allow me.
I'll come back to that, though.
Right. So your approach is you don't think you can make it on your own, given the present political construct in the country. So you have to choose an alignment between either the PNM or the UNC, both of which you suggest have had instances where state contracts have been given to gang elements. So you choose the lesser of the two evils for the long-term good? Is that what you're saying?
Well, the fact of the matter is, if I don't do this, what would you prefer? Would you prefer for me to stay away and be clear and clean because we are so perfect? The Congress and the people had the same impression as well. And then when things were going wrong, they stayed silent. My concept is that if it is that mistakes were made in the past, it will take someone of my character and integrity to get in there to ensure we do not repeat the mistakes of the past, because I will now be in a position of authority to ensure it happens by advising the leadership of the other political parties. This is wrong. I did not have that type of authority. I was the Minister of National Security, but you had political leaders of the UNC, the COP, the NJAC, the MSJ. They were all there. And now I'm giving the assurance to the country that the mistakes that have taken place for the last 15 years under different administrations would not take place, because I was not in that position at the time to have that.
You'll be a stronger political ally leader than was Winston Duker and Carolyn C. Beach and Ital.
Of course, they sat. You see, people blame the UNC for what the demise of the People's Partnership. The COP hierarchy, they sat down. I was there in cabinet at times. I saw certain bills and certain things being done, and they said nothing. They did nothing. And I was the one who had to stand up, and then I was told, but you're not a member of the COP. Why are you standing firm? So certain persons went in there for their own personal agenda, and they did not represent that third constituency. That third constituency, or that 150,000 who are not PNM or UNC till they die, but they stand firm on integrity and what is right. I intend to make sure they are properly represented this time around. Wendell, you were saying something?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on, Gary, that issue you raised about what you were able to do as Commissioner of Police with that undercover operation that you did for me. The counselor you referred to. No, well, I'm telling the public is me, because I was chairman of Downtown Carnival, and I got wind that there were thugs on the site preventing the contractors from building the downtown stand. And we did make contact, and you were able to put that operation in place, and we were able to complete the stand without interference from these thugs. And I met the officer, the senior officer. I can't remember what rank he is, but I know he's either inspector or assistant superintendent. Yeah, I met him on the site, and he too was in plain clothes that day. You understand? And said, "Listen, we will take care of this," and it was taken care of. And I always wonder why that kind of policing can't continue. I say that in the context of what's happening in downtown right now, with these fellas grabbing and snatching. Why has the police put a sting operation in place?
Because, and again, this is not the fault of Earl Christopher. This is a time in this country where you need a commissioner of police who's operational, who's tactical, who's strategic, who understands that type of law enforcement. Earl Christopher, Stephen Williams, McDonald Jacobs, they are good people. They are good people in Gabardine holding a cane behind a desk. Earl Christopher got 30% less by qualified experts in 2018. 30%. She got 52% to others like Dulalcha and myself who got over 80. In 2021, she got 20% less. The now appointed Police Service Commission that with individuals who have no law enforcement experience or qualification, inclusive of an accountant and a speaking consultant, they decided to put her first. So she does not have the tactical capability to do the things that I was doing. And you're correct, Wendell. That is what should be done. Instead, you're hearing the police saying, we are concerned about this situation. You do sting operations. You put covert operatives. When you call them covert operatives, sleeper cells, you put moles, you put them, and that's what I was doing. We were putting them in the underworld. We were putting them in with gangs. We were getting what was known as predictive policing. We were preventing the crime from taking place. We prevented over 70 murders because of predictive policing. Having sting operations. That is what is required. But when it is that you have a prime minister who handpicks a president, who handpicks a police service commission, who are totally incompetent, that they will say that we will appoint someone who got 30% less than others by qualified experts internationally hired by KPMG. The Police Service Commission is responsible for where we are now, not Earl Christopher.
So are you saying, but you are saying that the wrong choice was made essentially for Commissioner of Police in terms of the tactical experience to deal with what we're facing now? At the end of the day, she's the Commissioner of Police. Whether or not you feel she's the right choice or the wrong choice, she's the Commissioner of Police. Am I incorrect?
You're incorrect to the point that she's the Commissioner of Police not by qualification or standard, but by political appointment.
But because she is the Commissioner of Police. Is it that you're saying that she does not have the requisite skill set to deal with what criminal element we're dealing with today?
And that's what I'm saying, Paul. In 2018, remember the laws were changed where the appointment of the Commissioner of Police, you need to hire international experts.
Does Earl Haywood Christopher have the skill set to effectively manage the crime we're seeing today? It's a very simple question. It's a very simple question.
No, but wait, if I give you my answer, it will seem personal. What I'm telling you is that the qualified international experts that KPMG hired, who appointed 20 other police officers around the world, said they answered your question. She does not. She came 17th or 22nd. She got 52%. I can send the data for you. How could someone who got 30% less, placed 22nd, and 3 years later, she decided to go ahead of all the other individuals who were beaten up comprehensively? This was a handpicked selection by an incompetent police service commission that were handpicked by a president who broke the law. That's the point I'm stating.
Will 1,000 additional police, as announced in the budget, make a difference?
All right. No, that is within the established strength, and which is good that there were 8 policies that the Minister of National Security brought out in the budget. Every single one was a regurgitation and a complete overhaul of exactly what I did as a minister or as the commissioner, from the damning vessels, social media monitoring, community policing, the vetted units, the scanners, every single thing he piggybacked. He took 8 out of the 120 policies shut down. That one you spoke about, Paul, with recruiting. As the Minister of National Security at the time, I understood that we were doing batches of 100 twice a year, but we were losing 200 police officers annually based on retirement and so forth. So the concept is we can never get to the shortage of the 1,400 if we keep doing the same thing. We are not going to get different. We're going to get different results. I then moved the training to the Chaguaramas Convention Center, and from there we started getting batches of 300, and we did it 2 or 3 times, and it was the closest we had to our established strength. Because of pettiness, small-mindedness by the PNM, they refused to continue what I did. So for 8 years, we went back to the academy. After 8 years, realizing what they're doing is wrong, now they want to go back to the Chaguaramas Convention Center. I did the homework as the Commissioner of Police. Colin Imbert should do his homework instead of wasting taxpayers' money. It is going to cost $30 million to refurbish that Chaguaramas Convention Center now. Whereas the police academy, there were several buildings in the back of the film center that belongs to the state that people are paying rent and charging other people state buildings that we could utilize that instead. And that will get us to the established strength. Having said that, recall 2018 to 2021, it's the same number of police officers that we have now. So it is not about increasing quantity, it is enhancing quality.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because my next question was going to be, do you think that the present training regimen is adequate, or should it be amended to deal with what we are facing now, especially in terms of transnational criminal elements in the country, the drug trafficking issue that we're facing that is driving much of what we're seeing on the ground, from my understanding?
Yeah, definitely. And that was being done, Paul. It's not just about, you see, we speak a lot about drugs. It also had to do with customer service training, public relations, put in systems to measure performance and make police officers accountable, put in GPS tracking on the vehicles to ensure that they don't park up by their girlfriend for the whole day. That is why everywhere you went, as soon as there was a traffic congestion, we had an operation command center, see the traffic, and you'll have when last have you seen a police officer directing traffic? We were doing that every single day, dozens of places, anywhere there's traffic. If a police vehicle will go 100 miles or on Rice Road at 4 p.m. on a Friday, we could check and realize you're not on a distress call, so you know that you're abusing your authority. All of that has been shut down. The body cameras, the live cameras on the dashboards of the police vehicles, everything has been shut down and removed. So that is why you're not seeing the high visibility. I repeat after you on a Friday night, Wendell, every 3 minutes, people started getting upset. They were seeing too many blue lights, too many sirens, because we had systems based on the same number of police officers. So now you're not seeing police officers, you're not seeing vehicles. Usually within 2 minutes, you make a call, you in a home invasion. By the time you jump back over the wall, a few moments later wasn't by accident. We had a comprehensive lockdown system using technology. We had a police app with 400,000 hits. They shut it down. We had online reporting. So if a 13-year-old girl is raped, she doesn't have to go to a police station where that police officer might know the suspect and then she's killed. She will go on online reporting to link up with a gender-based violence unit that will come to her home for delivery service. All of these things were shut down, Paul. So the systems were there. And that is why public trust and confidence in the police moved from 14 to 55%. But Wendell's prime minister decided to say, I want to change it.
It's our prime. You know, every time I listen to you, I get upset. You know why? You know why I get upset? I remember the days leading up to the selection of the commissioner of police. We, Power Breakfast Show in particular, campaigned for you. Because you know why? Because we thought that bringing somebody who did not come up through those ranks, those disgusting ranks of the police service, would work. And it did. And then every morning I would spend time saying, Gary, hush your mouth now. Gary, hush your mouth now. Gary, you're talking too much now. And you didn't listen. No, so I get upset because I knew that you were on the right track. And then I started to see Gary falling in line with the same damn nonsense. Forgive my words.
No, but Wendell, you've come a prime minister telling people to look up. Let me finish. I'm just even 45 million to a commissioner to lock up political opponents.
All of that started to get personal. That was personal, and
because it was out of place. 23 U.S. police chiefs told the most powerful man on the planet, shut up. You're affecting my security.
You know what? Both you and the prime minister and everybody else for that matter just need to put aside whatever petty and do what's best for the country. Because the country needs.
But I did that 4 months ago. 4 months ago, I said I am willing to provide my service and support to help the government and the country. And you know what that petty little man said? I don't care. I don't want to talk to him. And then you had your people like Train Seats in Orlando and Toko.
Mr. Gary, I can't sit in an interview and you be insultive and disrespectful.
But I am giving a fact. That is what this man did.
I wouldn't allow anybody to do you that, so I wouldn't allow you to do the prime minister that.
I'm sorry, put it up. He showed immaturity by not looking at the bigger picture.
You could say words like that.
What's your response to the budget and the general measures outlined in the budget? Because you're a political leader, so your opinion matters at a significant level. What stands out from the budget for you as productive, and where do you think the gaps may lie, if you think there are gaps?
Well, again, we try to spend so much time trying to balance our budget by trying to see how much income we could get to balance with the expenditure, which is what our budget is about. And then the one thing that the PNM is good at to try to balance the budget is try to tax the way out of everything. And that has always been, there's never been any thinking out of the box to find a way to access another degree of income other than trying to tax persons. And then there's the other element, because the best way to balance a budget, if you cannot increase your income, it is to minimize your expenditure whilst not affecting productivity. And that is where it is, we have a serious issue. Going right back to what I spoke about, Wendell, with markups, kickbacks to criminal elements, tender process that takes place. We have state board officials where 95% of them have no qualification in the state board that they were appointed, other than the fact that they have a PNM party card or whichever party card, whoever is in government. This allows for mismanagement, incompetence, and corruption. So if you could actually reduce by 20% your expenditure based on such mismanagement and corruption, it helps you now in trying to balance your budget. I'll give you a simple example, Paul. We were able to save over $100 million per annum on corruption with overtime with police officers. $100 million, because Colin Mimbert, in his wisdom, decided to cut the police budget in 2020 during COVID, when the police would have been at its highest by over $300 million. And I had to find an avenue to get riverine patrol vehicles, to get social media monitoring unit, to get GPS tracking on vehicles, tasers, body cameras, pepper spray. And then I realized we had a couple hundred police officers claiming they were working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and signed by other officers. I was able to reduce that overtime corruption by $100 million. So I think that is just as important. We never put interest on how do we reduce expenditure whilst not affecting productivity. What we hear a lot of economists speak about is we need to diversify and we need to put focus on agriculture and all sorts of different things, which is good. But if it is what we become very stringent, which is what I intend to do in cabinet, every single cent that is spent, we need justification. We do not need to have situation with tenders where you have 3 persons put a tender and all 3 of them do an exclusive markup so that they will get something and then kickback comes out. If we can reduce our expenditure by at least 20%, which is based on corruption or incompetence, it will assist us to provide to minimize the situation as we have now. As it pertains to the minimum wage, yes, it is important that persons who are on that threshold should have an opportunity. But we also need to be very careful when we make those decisions. So, for example, the private security industry, you have 50,000 security officers that were probably making about that amount, right? 1850. You push that up now. What is going to happen is 2 things, gentlemen. Either it means that the state or whoever, the private or public sector, will be forced now to increase their rates, which is now going to be a byproduct of increase in goods and services, a byproduct of inflation, or you're going to say, well, we were hiring 35 security officers, we now only need to hire 25. So you're going to get unemployment as the back end. So as much as people are very excited about the increase in minimum wage, it acts as a byproduct towards unemployment or inflation.
Well, that is always a possibility when one increases minimum wage, but it's something that the country has to grapple with in any case.
I know, but you have to do it. You have to control it.
Well, wasn't it a measured increase? Because some were calling for $25, some were calling for $30. So isn't $28.50 a measured increase?
Yeah, and I'm not criticizing them. I'm saying that the people who are saying we should go up to $30, they don't understand the domino effect that can take place when these things happen. So it has to be measured.
Are you willing to take some calls and from our audience who are always very eager to talk to you?
Yes, certainly.
The numbers are 222-TALK, 222-8255, 612-8255. And if you're calling from North America, it's 866-525-1099. Our guest is NTA political leader and the man who thinks he may be the next Prime Minister, Guy Griffith. How's that going to work? Because you clearly have intention, from what you've said earlier on.
I didn't see that, I didn't see that. You
said that you are potential Prime Minister. We're recording this.
Okay? Well, I don't know. When they was calling different names, I said, why not say Prime Minister?
Well, you better be the Prime Minister.
When they look what's on my jacket.
You better be the Prime Minister if you want to.
Look what's on my jacket.
If you want to get all what you say done, you better be the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister. Are you interested in being Prime Minister of this country?
I don't know what the future holds for me. I am making myself available in whatever form or fashion the country would like me to be in.
So you're interested in being the potential a prime minister of this country? You're politically leader of a political party, so come on.
It is an option, of course. You don't, and and that is the point, Wendell and Paul, exactly what you said. The reason you form a political party is to win. The reason you form a political party is to get into government. I am a realist. Whether it was the ONR, the NAR, or the COP, a third political party cannot get in government. We are going to get 150 to 170,000 votes. You divide that by 41, you're going to get 4,000 votes per constituency. It is not going to get you anywhere. We do not have proportional representation. So if it is that 150,000 they want to be represented, we are not joining with the UNC. There's a strategic alliance where we still have our principles, we still have our constitution, but by me being in a position of authority, it would ensure that the mistakes of the past would not take place or will be greatly minimized.
All right, gentlemen, let's grab this call. Good morning. Morning, caller.
Hello.
Good morning. Mr. Griffith, I'm glad to ask you this question because people don't seem to want to ask you the right people the right questions. We were informed through another commissioner or some inquiry that under your stewardship, when you do the timeline, it had to be under your stewardship, that 2 vehicles were leased. They were supposed to be to scan vehicles for guns and whatnot. We were advised that it yield no results, but it seems that they were locked into a contract for a particular period of time. One, could you explain why this vehicle was leased and continue to be leased and yielding no results?
Okay, that's one. You had a second question? You just said one.
And well, the second question would be, why wasn't anybody consulted for the legality of these vehicles before they were leased? Because I understand, like OSHA stopped it from.
Yeah, okay, right. So that's a total lie. OSHA never stopped anything. One good thing with the PNM, you say the same lie over and over. You get some of your fanatics to believe it. OSHA never stopped it. Those type of scanners were used worldwide, in United Kingdom, all over Europe, and they are very instrumental in trying to pinpoint drugs and ammunition and weapons in vehicles. So that's one. So there's nothing about OSHA. That is the same feeble nonsense you heard about the scanners we had in the ports, and certain persons didn't want to use it because they were afraid of radiation. So sometimes the criminal underworld is so very powerful, they find avenues to lie to prevent them from continuing their enterprise. Two, those vehicles were very successful vehicles, as I said, worldwide. Because of COVID, we were unable to get the experts to come down here to be able to assist us in utilizing it properly. But those vehicles were heavily utilized during in patrols. On my departure, based on obviously either incompetence, political pettiness, or affiliation with criminal elements, those in authority refused to utilize those vehicles, because those vehicles could have also been used on the ports to assist in pinpointing illegal weapons and drugs. Anyone who has a concern with me as a commissioner of police getting scanners to be able to find illegal drugs and weapons on the road, then you are no different to the criminal yourself.
Gary, report. Just before we go to the next call, Steve, a question. As your commissioner of police, can the police make a raid on the port without the authorization of port police or port leadership?
No, the port is like an embassy by itself. Even in hot pursuit, we can't get in there, which is why I drafted a border protection unit. I gave it to the Prime Minister. And again, either based on incompetence or some type of criminal underworld that has some influence with those in authority, they refuse to implement it. So the one day, Paul, that you have one rogue custom officer, one rogue stevedore, one rogue driver, and one rogue security guard by the gate, it means a container could leave with 1,000 illegal weapons, and the police will seize 800 for the year. I drafted the border protection unit to put an end to that, so it'll have representatives of the police, army, coast guard, customs, immigration, private security, all watching each other, working hand in hand to minimize the illegal drugs and weapons that enter. Because the U.S. Embassy confirmed with me that over 95% of the illegal weapons that enter our country, which by the way is trivialized by this government because they spend more time dealing with legal firearms that save people's lives, 95% come through the legitimate ports of entry. That is why it was so important for us to put a border protection unit. That border protection unit will do a lot to minimize the illegal entry. and also with the implementation of the scanners, the mobile scanners that I acquired, and they refused to use after 2 years based on either incompetence or trying to affiliate and be sympathetic to criminals to allow drugs and weapons to go through the roads. That is where we are at, Paul. But you're correct. It is the police do not have the authority just to rush in there unless they have a warrant.
That's confusing to me. The port seems like a state on itself, unto itself.
That's right.
Seems that way. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good morning to the gentlemen who have aspirations of being the Prime Minister of this country. Gentlemen, I want to know, seeing they have aspirations to be the Prime Minister of this country and they're going so far to put things in place to be a political leader, I want to know how are you going to break the system? At minimum wage, I always say $20 an hour for 20 years. I ain't even making $1 million in 20 years, and yet in 20 years we spend over $1 trillion. So 195,000 persons work in 20 years for less than 15% of $1 billion. And added to that, when you put the rest of salary, it come up to about 25% of the million trillion. What we did with $750 billion over the year, you're not seeing it, and I'm not seeing it. And the thing about it, if that system is in place, you can't do anything. All you could do is run down little bandit on the street, because look at $750 billion spent, and it's not salary. Is it recurring expense? And everything I had to do, I had to borrow money from the bank. Something is wrong here. So if you're going to be a leader, how do you dismantle the system? Thank you.
Well, the first thing you have to do is to accept the fact that there will be those persons, sometimes we feel the criminal elements are just those with their pants sagging and the white vest and the gold chain. But there are those in shirt and tie and suit, some of them even in parliament. And you have to stand firm to understand that sometimes, regardless of political party, there will be those individuals that will utilize this in a convenient manner. I intend to stand firm, as I did with live sport, as I did when I had a concern about the individual escorting us by Piccadilly, as I did when it is politicians were trying to influence me to arrest political opponents, as I did when senior politicians were trying to get me to arrest people because of their color. I will stand firm. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to do a job. And those simple things that he spoke about, gentlemen, we lose hundreds of millions of dollars annually by corruption and kickback through either criminal enterprises, persons getting markup on contracts that really cost 10%.
Gary, are there untouchables in Trinidad and Tobago? You mentioned white-collar crime, and we're always talking about since the late Patrick Manning days, Mr. Big, and you're right, we focus on the blue-collar criminals and the little boys in the street. But we don't seem to, despite all efforts from administration to administration, are able to take down the people who have the resources to bring in the guns, to transship the drugs. Are there untouchables in this country?
Yeah, they are. And on the mistake I made as the commissioner of police was to go after those persons, because they were persons heavily affiliated with government officials. Well, the first thing I realized is that the police service, we were playing catch up. We had several different units jumping over each other. That is for the first time we formed a white-collar crime unit, that was bringing in the FIB, the fraud, the ACIB, and cyber under one umbrella. So we were able to start sharing information and then be able to pinpoint and target persons that assisted us in getting many arrests through white-collar crime. Then we had police officers who would be on the take that will deliberately not come to court. I was able to reduce 87% in police absenteeism by police officers simply not attending court, either through being fearful or through being paid. And no disciplinary action was being taken. 87% reduction in police absenteeism. Now it has returned. And then we have the situation where, regardless of who you were, you would have known that as the commissioner of police, persons who are arrested who were in the opposition, persons were cleared who were in the opposition, persons who are arrested who were in government, persons were cleared who were in government. I didn't care what party card you had. And there was a major investigation that I was doing where the government utilized their legal, they went to court and they said, well, this case is null and void. And I said, no, you having your civil case has nothing to do with a police investigation. because the investigation that I had made for very interesting reading. And all I asked was for 100,000 TT to get an engineer to reconfirm what was put in that report. And that is where I made my mistake, because those persons were closely affiliated to government officials. So when you hear anything about Keith Rowley firing me because of my situation with Bayside, that soon enough the country will find out the real reason.
Why don't tell the country now?
Well, I just did.
Give us the details. You give us the overview.
The fact of government officials being reluctant and upset of me being independent as a commissioner of police. Now we see a commissioner of police. We know for a fact the law is broken in that merit list, because the minutes of the Police Service Commission showed that they never withdrew the merit list. So we know that the law is broken, and this commissioner of police would refuse to investigate. We know that the police officers who went and abducted Brent Thomas, that they were given instructions by a government official, because as a commissioner of police, I can confirm that no police officer could leave the country without the approval of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and the commissioner of police will stay silent. So what this government has is what they want. A commissioner of police will toe the line, not go after them, and target political, and use the police service now to target political opponents. That Trinidad and Tobago is a police state.
Thank you so much for being with us, Mr. Griffith.
My pleasure, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you so much, Gary Griffith, for being with us.
Any matters that we can expect to be settled in the courts coming up?
Oh yeah, we have a few. We have the audit coming up. We have a couple with Rhoda Barrett coming up. We have the Blisty Prasad matter coming up, because that has gone to court. I've also taken Stanley John to court. I've taken Keith Rowley to court for referring to me as a criminal. Oh yeah, the line is long and distinguished, gentlemen.
Have a good day.